in line with what we think is risky behavior, because we were just talking about how we all kind of are concerned about people talking about our products that aren't us, that we don't pay, that we can't sue, that maybe we need to just think about. We've got the Godfrey team here, so Northrop and Alison Adams are with us. Alli brings extensive experience in B2B media relations, influence engagement, and account management, with a track record of executing high-impact public relations programs. She excels at cultivating and sustaining strong relationships with B2B media and influencers. We're going to try and emulate you. And she delivers consistently meaningful results for her clients. In her role at Godfrey, she's the agency's go-to expert on influencer and creator engagement, leading best practices, identifying emerging trends, shaping processes and strategy that drive measurable impact. She's been with Godfrey since 2019. Right? We're going to have to ask you how that was. Yeah. Alison has over 20 years of experience in B2B marketing, tech communications, partnering with organizations that operate in complex, technical, and highly competitive markets. She leads a team of strategists and analysts focused on developing innovative, data-driven, and high-performing strategies that connect meaningfully with B2B audiences and demonstrate measurable ROI. As a strategist on key accounts, she works to combine industry knowledge, audience insight, and strategic creativity to ensure marketing programs drive engagement, alignment, and sustainable business growth. Alison has been with Godfrey since 2010 and has supported clients in manufacturing, construction, chemicals, automation, and controls, all things of people. Together, they're going to be educating us on B2B influencer market space. B2B influencers exist in virtually every industrial market. They just look different than people might expect, often take in the form of engineers, contractors, consultants, analysts, or educators, rather than traditional social media celebrities. Though increasingly, some are becoming exactly that in their industries. I can't wait to see some. So we're going to explore why B2B influencers aren't just trendy optional add-ons, but why they're powerful partners in building business awareness. And I'm looking forward to learning all about that. So take it away.
Well, hey everybody, we are very, very excited to be here today to share the hour of influencer partnerships for B2B with you all. As I mentioned, or as Lynn mentioned, I'm Alli Northrop. I'm a PR manager and creator relations lead at Godfrey.
And I'm Alison Adams. I'm Vice President of Strategy and Analytics.
Yeah, so Godfrey is a B2B marketing agency made for complex industries. So I couldn't help but notice earlier whenever the influencer presentation was mentioned, I heard some groans. But believe it or not the first time I've gotten that. I think you'll be surprised to see how B2B influencers are really fundamentally different than the typical consumer influencers we see on our Instagram feeds every day. So when people think of influencers, they think hype, short-lived fads, trendy, and I totally get that. But this conversation today is going to be about something such a lot more strategic than that. It's about risk, the whole theme of the conference. Specifically, the risk of not working with influencers. In our B2B complex markets, influence is shaping decisions long before buyers interact with sales. And if you're missing that opportunity before you're engaging with sales, you're losing where credibility and awareness is actually built.
So traditional brand messaging doesn't work on its own anymore. So B2B buyers are facing really crowded markets. They're facing technical complexity. They're facing stronger internal scrutiny, and that could include career, financial, operational, reputational risk. So that's making them much more cautious and risk averse in their decision making. And this is really where trust comes into play. And from our conversation earlier around, AI and what it will do and what it will not do, I think people are looking for authenticity, right, in the world of AI as well. So really bringing that into play as well. So that is built more increasingly now outside of traditional brand channels, right? So peer validation through third-party credibility and through also credible content-based, credible experience-based content. So that's why a strong PR program is important, right? It's all about third-party credibility, and using influencers is an increasingly important part of that marketing mix and is really an extension of working with editors. But this isn't anecdotal. Research is showing that influencer content drives touch points and along the customer journey, like discovery, evaluation, even helping to support sales conversations. So we're really seeing some business outcomes that are coming from influencer strategies. So there's some LinkedIn research that was done with Edelman that kind of demonstrate this. So you can see like 6 in 10 industrial B2B buyers discover new brands via creator content. 2 out of 3 say creator perspectives help evaluate options. About half visit a vendor website after engaging with a creator, and over a third speak with sales after an influencer engagement. So we heard from Luciano earlier today that risk is based on what you stand to lose, and this kind of impact is what you stand to lose if you don't engage influencers in your space.
Well, there's no influencers in my space. No, there's actually influencers in every space. You just got to know where to dig in. And as Lynn mentioned, they're not looking like those B2C, Alex Earls type of influencers that are, they have their leggings that they're promoting, and they're promoting hair care gummies and they're dancing to Doja Cat. No. They're very different. They're subject matter experts. They're practitioners. They're engineers, contractors, consultants, analysts, all of those folks, technical content creators. Now, I should note, a lot of them are building very large engaged followings, and they're becoming social media celebrities in their own right. The key difference here is that their expertise, their content is rooted in their expertise, not lifestyle branding. So influence is happening whether you're actively participating or not. The real question here is, are you falling behind? Is your brand missing from important conversations that they should be a part of? If you're not showing up early through influencer touch points, you're missing opportunities. You're missing visibility. You're letting others define the problem, build trust, and shape the buyer before you're ever going to have the opportunity to get in there and try. And in our B2B industries, even the more conservative ones, like I mentioned, these engineers, contractors, they have very large followings, and this directly impacts demand generation. These influencers, they're out there talking to your customers exactly where they are. That validation, that third-party validation that they can offer your brand is huge. That's going to drive demand and interest. But the challenge here, these influencer relationships, they take time. And if you wait 2-3 years to adopt it, your competitors are going to be out there doing it. And then at that point, you're not going to just be behind in content, you're going to be behind in trust with the buyer. So, okay, why ignoring them is risky? You're missing early awareness and problem framing moments. Buyers aren't searching for your product first. They realize they have a problem first. So if you can get in there and help shape that moment, your brand's going to be in there, and it's not going to be after the problem is already defined. Competitors can shape the narrative first. They can shape how people see the problem and the right solution. So at that point, they're the default before you're even considered. Credibility builds outside of your brand's control. As we all know, trust is built through third parties. And if influencers aren't talking about you and you're not in that conversation, it's hurting both awareness and perception at the end of the day. And the relationship building starts too late. So by the time someone is engaging, they're talking to sales, they're downloading content, they've already formed key opinions. And if you're not in there early, getting that awareness, you're entering the relationship late.
So influencer content isn't just driving awareness. It really is impacting, as I said earlier, touch points along the buyer's journey. So in the early stage, influencer content can help define the problem. So they're bringing the emerging challenges to you. They're kind of helping to define what's high value, what is maybe best in class. And really working to bring some of those solutions to the table. So if they're helping to define the problem, they're also helping to define the solution. In the mid stage, they're helping to drive the evaluation. So they're bringing those solutions, they're helping to explain the trade-offs of that, the pros and cons, and they're also validating some of the buyer criteria that they're seeing in the marketplace as well. And in the late stage, they're really supporting the sales process and actually can arm you with the language to use to convince your internal stakeholders that a solution makes sense, right? And in providing the third-party credibility to help support those discussions as well.
Right, let's look at some examples of these different stages. So early stage, a really great example of getting influencers in the early buying stage is going to be podcast guest appearances that ID problems. You know, you're figuring out what the problem is. So Johnson Controls went on the Fire Sprinkler podcast to discuss changes to NFPA 13 standards. So this was great because they're getting in there to an active change within the industry. They're highlighting it for their audience, and oh, they just so happen to have the solution too. So works out very, very nicely. Both are identified at the same time. And, you know, sometimes whenever you identify that problem, you become the default solution. So I believe we're going to be able to play an example of this.
We're seeing that point two.
Close to volunteering for it now.
Exactly. Yeah, they changed, and so if you're familiar with NFPA 13, you know, we have light hazard, ordinary hazard, extra hazard. They don't specifically call out what is or isn't in the body of the standard. You have to go to the annex sections.
Yep.
But in the annex sections that talks about light, ordinary, extra, they've got lists of examples of what fall into those categories. So historically, parking garages have been listed as ordinary hazard group 1.
Yep.
So 0.15 density.
Over 1,500.
Over 1,500. And one of the big changes is that now in that annex section, parking garages are ordinary hazard group 2.
What was?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how that standard is actually impacted, but the audience does. And this is a really great activation, right? Because it's not too flashy, not too crazy. It's a sit-down interview with a camera at an in-person event. It's a really quick, easy way to get some great content, start building that relationship, and an event that Johnson Controls was already going to be at.
The kickoff for that?
There we go. So mid-stage, a great opportunity here is to produce some deep explainer content. So Hitachi Cooling and Heating, they partnered with an industry influencer who also happened to be a prior contractor. So they gave him the Hitachi Air Home 800 ductless cold climate heat pump. And they did a full installation from start to finish, showing off all the tools necessary, the full installation. And this was great because one of the product promises is that it's easy to install. How great that we were able to just show really how easy it was to install. And then on top of it, with the cold climate capabilities, we were actually installing it in Indiana in December. I was there and I can confirm it was cold. It was actively snowing. But it was just a great way to show off that this product does exactly what it promised to do. I have a little example of this one. I might skip around a little bit because I definitely want to show off the intro of this. There's also a great section where he's going over all of the tools necessary, and then you got to show the product getting mounted. You know, it's classic. It's actually
I was lying on the grass of Sunday morning of last week. I was lying on the grass of Sunday
Connecting to our breaker, so our breaker. Welcome to our homestead installation of our Hitachi 800 series Air Home cold climate heat pump. As you can tell, here in the Midwest, we're in Indiana, it gets pretty frigid. A couple of the reasons we chose the Hitachi 800 series: this unit is rated for 100% capacity at -5 degrees Fahrenheit and will operate down to -22 degrees Fahrenheit. It has some options that are going to be really handy to have, like the frost wash that we'll talk about for the indoor unit as well as the outdoor, as well as 2.5 micron filtration through the 2.5 PM filters. So we're glad that you joined us, and we hope that you enjoy this installation. Before we begin our installation, let's familiarize ourselves with all of the tools and components that we're going to need to complete this installation. We need to begin with a level for when we're mounting our mounting plates, so we can make sure that we're secured in a level location. We'll need a pencil for marking our location. We're going to need our drill driver to be able to secure our wall plate to the wall. We will need a hole saw to be able to make the hole through our wall to be able to install
a fast, easy oil change with your best car bud? Jiffy does.
This summer, journey with Disney to a galaxy far, far away.
Hang on, kid.
our line set, as well as our 14-4 communicating wire. We're also going to need our wire that will be going from our disconnect.
I was lying on the grass of
We'll just skip that to avoid another some things can steal your sunshine.
Karen, I love you.
Sunday morning.
All right, hopefully the next example has less ads, but this one, I really love this example. So case construction, oh, sure.
So I guess like what resonates for
Yeah.
people with these influencers? Because I've worked at DuPont before and now Ingredion, and we'll put out videos that are kind of similar to this, and maybe it's like 200 views or something. And we always discuss, like, is a video even worth it?
Yeah.
And so is it more about like the training, or is it the actual influencer themselves? And how do you build that person up to become that influencer?
Yeah, it really depends on the industry, on the project at hand. In this instance, Clifton is attached to a educational organization within the HVAC industry, the ESCO Institute. So they're a very trusted organization already. And then Clifton, he's a great guy. He's very personable. He's always out and about. He's really built those strong roots within the industry. So he's really, really trusted. And that goes for a lot of people within the HVAC industry too. That's just kind of how they all are. They're very friendly. I get very lucky that I get to work in that area. But I guess how do you build somebody up to be an influencer? You can do that with, if there's an employee in your company, you can create an employee advocacy LinkedIn program where they're going to be posting content, maybe some blogs here or there. Just making their presence as known as possible is a great way to do that.
But I think if a brand releases a video on your own YouTube channel versus tapping into an influencer that brings their own audience and a sense of credibility, third-party credibility, it's a whole different ballgame and a whole different perception, I think, of that content and the value of that content.
So the influencer, Clifton, he put it on his own channel.
Yep, he put it on his own channel.
Okay.
And actually in that instance, it was great. It went on the YouTube channel, and then it was also turned into curriculum for the HVACR Education Network.
Mm-hmm.
So that exact video was put up with questions. And at the end, if they answered all the questions right, they pay $2.99 and they get a certification for continuing education.
Oh, wow.
So that was a really great opportunity.
And that was linked on their site, so it was.
Yeah.
So another thing about the value of videos, so, YouTube is owned by Google, by Alphabet, right? And so Gemini, YouTube videos are being part of the training models for LLM. So anytime that you have a similar concept reiterated on multiple platforms by different individuals, not just the brand, the LLMs favor that content. And so maybe you only got 200 views, but go into an AI model and see if that video, like if you ask them questions, if that video is cited as a source.
It's awesome too, if you include closed captions on these YouTube videos, it's so much more streamlined for AI to pull from. So that's always my recommendation to my clients. Let's add some closed captioning, let's get it all transcribed, just to make it that much easier for visibility through AI. Yeah.
Is there a difference in whether the influencer is perceived as independent and objective versus he's on the pay?
Oh, so definitely, that's a huge difference. And in B2B, I always go with the route of earned influencer relations is huge because it's completely unpaid. It's built on that relationship, and relationship, like Dan said, human to human equals trust. So people are really more likely to act with some earned opportunity. Now the difference, there's definitely some great opportunities for paid as well, but it just depends on the case. Yeah.
What's in it for Clifton? I'm not too familiar with influencers in general, but what's in it for Clifton?
Yeah, Clifton gets great educational content that supports the work that he's already doing.
Okay.
And actually, that HVAC unit was installed at, he calls it his barn dominium. And it's like it's a farm in Indiana that he kind of retreats at, and we installed it there, and it worked out great for everybody. Yes.
Does he get revenue from the ads that are written alongside that?
Esco does. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, we just launched a campaign utilizing a TikTok and Instagram influencer, and it was really powerful. I mean, I think it depends on, we're B2B, so our customer is not the user nor the installer. And so, but this helped, like, did our, influencing post help our relationship with a massive electrical distributor? No, but contractors have preference on what they buy. So it created contractor preference. There's also what we ran into when we launched a campaign. There was legal issues with us comparing our data to competitors' data. We couldn't publish that. But an independent, and if you look, you Google Sarah Wire MC and look at videos, and the influencer comes up as the top, and he is pulling our wire compared to our competitor's wire, and he's saying that his tag is electrical U. He does it in like a educational style, and he had apprentices pull our wire, and other apprentices pull our competitor's wire, which we can't do.
Right.
And so it showed a true competitive comparison. So you can use influencers, and it still says like hashtag sponsored. People know that we sponsor this individual, but he got, I think, 15,000 views within the first 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Alli will show you too, like whether it's earned or paid, there's definitely some vetting criteria that she has a scorecard that we're gonna show you as well too, so that you can make sure that they align with your values, that they align with your company in general. So
yeah, and Jessica and I were actually talking yesterday about just the different ways where you can repurpose the influencer content, right? It really does become an engine. You do a video like we did with Clifton, you have social media shorts that you can pull from it. In this case, the educational component of it. You can write blogs based off of it. It really just keeps going and going and going. Yeah.
Oh, can I follow up? I was curious to know like how you decided to put that on TikTok. Like, is that where the buyers were?
No, so it's the influencer that has a TikTok page and an Instagram page. So we paid them, it's like 10 or 15 grand for this influencer. They kind of have the rights to where they want to post it, and as long as we agree, if we said, hey, don't post it on this side, I'm sure they wouldn't. I think, one thing we discussed is, our customers are humans too. Just because, like, what do we do when we go home? We look at social media, and there are things that, I see about wiring cable on my Instagram. Sometimes I'll try to block it. But our customers are the same way. They go home, they look at Instagram, they look at Facebook, they look at TikTok. So it's become really powerful. We for sure had an issue with brand preference. We were a late entrant to the market. Competitors had claims and they pulled it better. Whether they were real or not, that's what this influencer helped kind of debunk and say, Similar to the Pepsi challenge, right? It's like, can you really tell the difference? Maybe you can. So it was, really powerful.
Just don't know.
I think with influencers using their own channels like TikTok too, a lot of our clients have a lot of safety and legal barriers, for posting certain things, and that kind of goes away when the influencers are taking the burden for creating that content and not having it approved by, fully by the brand sometimes. Yeah. Good questions.
No, definitely.
Are there regulations similar to, FTC has regulations that they have to identify as a paid partner? Any consumer, does that apply to B2B too?
It definitely does. Yeah, we have lots of regulations platform by platform that we have to follow. So internally, we have a checklist that we follow for each piece of content or activation that we do, so that we can go through easily and at a glance. We hit this, great. And there's also some optional ones, but I always make that clear. Like, if there's an option to do it, let's do it. Yeah, let's be better safe than sorry, right? All right, so we're at the last stage in the late stage of the buying cycle now. Content that is going to be a great fit for here is content that have endorsements, implementation, ROI stories, and then just some information for helping handle pushback on decisions. So Case Construction here, they went to ConExpo, which is the largest trade show for construction. There, they worked with the tool show. They invited them over to their booth, and they went into the situation just kind of thinking, this is going to be an average product showcase video. Little did they know, coming out of that, they had implementation stories available in there. They had language for handling objections. There was also a testimony from one of the influencers all about how they love using EV equipment. So it was really, really cool. Hopefully here we'll be able to play this one, but I'll give up quicker this time if it turns
Diesel versus electric. Everybody's got an opinion.
So we went to ConExpo, 140,000 people, every major equipment manufacturer on Earth, Las Vegas, to actually shift. Let us show you what that actually looks like. Case brought one of the most complete electric lineups at the show. An electric backhoe, 2 electric mini excavators, a compact wheel loader, and this, the TL100 EV, an electric mini track loader designed specifically for indoor work.
We are seeing demand in some of that interior specialty demolition.
You can't have exhaust, you can't have, and it's probably the noise as well.
Exactly. Again, it's not just an idea about keeping cognizance of the atmosphere and things of that nature. It's the breathing air inside.
Okay.
And of course, the noise pollution that you mentioned before.
The tracks are specifically engineered to be non-marking. Ryan told us that they actually leave the floor in a better condition than they found it. That's not a small detail. That's the difference between being allowed inside a grocery store renovation while it's still open versus not. Hospitals, schools, shopping centers, mid-renovation, tech campuses with strict requirements. These aren't future customers. They're asking for this machine right now.
Ryan also gave us the clearest picture.
Right.
Picture we heard all week.
All right, so we've got some tactics figured out. Now let's figure out how to go from tactics to strategic growth driver. Industry analysts are expressing that influencer relations have to move beyond tactics. Experimentation just isn't going to cut it. The real opportunity is integrating influencer relations into a long-term growth strategy. One that's going to span, like we talked about, paid, earned, and a little bit of mix of both there. And there are so many ways to scale and activate influencer content, but the key here is to ensure that they directly map to business objectives. And I can't stress this enough. Influencer relations should never live in the experimental bucket. So if your goal with an influencer activation is market education, Influencers can help reframe industry challenges. They can introduce new ways of thinking, especially in our B2B industries. So for this, short form explainer videos are a really great way to help make that content digestible and shareable for audiences. All right. Category leadership. So partnering with respected voices positions your brand at the center of important conversations. So they're not just participating in them. Great ways to do that are video interviews, roundtables, those types of content that can showcase different perspectives. They're very dynamic and visible ways. Right. There we go. Brand authority. Consistent collaboration with the right voices is going to position your company, your organization in the right light, the right ideas and the right people. For skeptics with influencer relations, it's going to be pipeline influences where they change their tune a bit. You know, influencers, they can actually drive measurable outcomes. They can drive website visits, content downloads, event registrations, and even sales conversions. You can properly track it with strong calls to action. It's really, you can really see its impact across the buyer journey. So for example, I think a great tactic for this is partnering with an influencer on a white paper or a webinar. It's content that we're already doing a lot in B2B. And it's just one way to kind of emphasize it, right? So you're working with an influencer, you're tapping into their audience, you're getting you're getting leads from their audience. And it's pretty mutually beneficial there. You can get those generate qualified leads. And then sales enablement. So you're giving, whenever you do this influencer content, you're giving your sales team armor, right? They can point to these videos and really say, like, here's how it's done, or here's how the install went, or the EV equipment. This is how you can use it on your application. So all that to say, awareness matters and it's important, but when you can track it back to business objectives, that's when people are going to go from, oh, that's interesting, to, oh, this is really strategic and able to be done.
So influencer strategy isn't kind of a standalone channel. You know, it doesn't live outside of the rest of your traditional marketing program. It really works to strengthen and to amplify it. So for earned media, influencers add third-party credibility to your PR narrative and create a more kind of compelling message. So think about including insights or quotes from an influencer in your articles, in your press releases, and really to help strengthen what that story could be. It will increase kind of media pickups. It will, you know, increase and have a more kind of well-rounded PR coverage that way. For own content, collaborating with an influencer helps to elevate some of that thought leadership. So rather than building content in isolation, you know, as a brand, tapping into their expertise and tapping into their audiences helps to drive stronger engagement as well, and to amplify the credibility there. And it's kind of win-win. So, you know, the influencer is bringing their audience, you know, to you to expand your reach, and you're adding credibility for them working with a well-established brand. So paid amplification, paid media, typically content that is from an influencer that is promoted through paid performs better than brand-focused messaging and brand-focused content. So we're seeing that, you know, you're able to use paid to promote, you know, a social post or a YouTube video or things like that. And you're able to drive stronger click-through rates, better cost per engagement, and overall kind of perceived authority there. With events and webinars, influencers bring a built-in audience with them, right? So they can really expand your reach at an event. You can bring them on site into the booth to create content with you. They can be part of real-time content creation or social amplification, and really to extend your reach within the trade show space. And then lastly, for executive visibility, partnering with respected industry voices can really add credibility and help elevate that executive visibility. So that can be bringing them in to be to moderate a panel, or that can bring them in to contribute to an executive content piece like Alli was saying too. So you can have kind of stronger executive positioning and engagement within that as well. So all that to say, really, this doesn't replace your traditional marketing. You're always going to have, you know, these elements as part of your marketing program, but this can really help to amplify and strengthen those efforts.
All right. So how the heck do we find these influencers? Well, when identifying influencers, believe it or not, sometimes a niche influencer with 5,000 followers is going to be a better fit for your campaign than a more broad influencer with like 100,000 followers. And that's just because the content is more specific. And I'm pretty sure we all know that we work in some pretty specific industries. So the closer we can get to those targets we're trying to reach, the better. You know, before you begin outreach, you do have to ground yourself in two things. So defining your goals. What are you trying to get out of this activation? Are you trying to drive awareness? Are you trying to build community? Are you trying to generate some leads? From there, that's going to determine whether you lean more into earned partnerships, paid partnerships, or a mix of both. You got to set a clear budget. This is critical because influencer partnerships, they can range from $0, a nice Starbucks gift card, all the way up to some major moolah. Like, it can be pretty extensive. So once you know your budget, that's going to help you really hone in on who you're trying to work with and also protect partnerships. So you're not reaching out to influencers and then consistently unable to work with them. That's going to hurt your reputation. From there, you're going to identify your target audience. So who are you actually trying to reach? Where do they spend their time? Who do they interact with? Those are the questions that are going to really help you figure out the route to go. From there, you can get into influencer discovery and vetting. So this is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of tools for doing this. There's LinkedIn Sales Navigator, there's social listening platforms. But to be honest with you all, my favorite is just old-fashioned social media stalking, right? You're going down the rabbit hole, you're digging in and trying to figure out who the best person is. And to do that, I find one person, it may be somebody with the title we're trying to go after. It may be I already found an influencer. Who are those people interacting with? Who's getting really good comments on their posts? Look at the comments. Oh, there's some titles that we're looking to reach. I think they could be a good fit. That's when you can dig in and really figure out who you need to be fit. So as Alison mentioned at Godfrey, we actually put together an influencer scorecard. And this is really great for just evaluating the partnership and putting some really organization behind your research. So for most campaigns, I like to originally look at about 3 influencers and compare them. We compare them across a few different criteria: industry credibility, audience alignment, brand fit, brand safety, content quality, and engagement rate. I have these weighted, so the weight can change depending on the client you're working with, or whoever you're working with. So for example, if you're working with somebody and they're very concerned about influencer reputation, what if they get canceled? What if? Well, you can kind of bump up the brand safety aspect to have that be more heavily weighted in your final scorecard. So yeah, quantitative at the top, qualitative at the bottom for the more vibe-based recommendations there. And in the middle, we have some just general information to help form those recommendations, helpful tips as you go. So if you're interested in getting this scorecard, just let me know and I'm happy to send it to you. But it's been really, really helpful for us. All right, from there, once engaging with an influencer, it's important to note that most programs move beyond one-off campaigns and they focus on sustained credibility. So you're moving beyond those one-off engagements. Transactional campaigns, they underperform in B2B environments. Instead, influence is built over time. It's not built in a single sponsored post. Buyers in these markets, they're skeptical. They have a lot on the line, so they pay attention to patterns. If they see online that an influencer mentions your brand once and then never again, they're gonna clock that. They're gonna see that it's transactional, not trusted. And so the most effective partnerships, they transition from campaigns to partnerships. Long-term collaborations allow influencers to develop a deeper understanding of your business, of your solutions. They can engage in more nuanced conversations beyond that. And at a certain point, they'll integrate your perspective into their broader thought leadership. I will never forget the first time I was listening to a podcast just for my own education, and I heard the influencer we've been working with mention one of my clients in a recent site visit he had done, and he talked naturally about some of their exact brand messaging, and I was like, I gotta add that to the clipboard. Like that was awesome. So it's really great to see, and another example of that happening. In the background here is Peak Technologies. They're a logistics and warehousing company. They've been working with The New Warehouse, which is a podcast hosted by Evan Lawton, an industry influencer. And he actually has a really, really great relationship with Peak. It started just as Peak going on The New Warehouse podcast, very simple activation. And then several years later, Kevin has visited Peak facilities, done tours, done interviews from the facilities. They've collaborated at trade shows, doing bigger activations. It's been really cool to see how they kind of work together and their synergies. It's a really natural fit there. So now you have the strong relationship. Let's move towards some co-created thought leadership. That's going to be research, webinars, white papers, even technical guides. Those all signal shared expertise. And at a certain point, it's really nice too, because once you have that relationship with the influencer, you can kind of pick their brain, you have that partnership. You can say, what are you hearing from your customers? What are their pain points? And you can get ideas on how to move forward and really accurately hit on some key points within the industry. And over time, that consistency is going to compound. Repeated exposure through a trusted source reduces perceived risk. So this is one of my favorite slides. It's how you can simply infuse influencer programs into what you're already doing, your existing strategy. So through trade show PR programs. At AHR Expo, that's the premier HVACR trade show, Johnson Controls was exhibiting, and we had just noticed a huge uptick in influencer activity in the HVACR industry. This was 2025, 2024. We're like, well, how do we tap into this at the trade show? So we didn't revisit anything. We just brought them into our existing trade show PR plan, the booth activity plan. We treated them just like media. So invited them for booth tours, invited them to have interviews with executives to create content live from the booth. The results were really, really significant. So more than half of all the media engagements actually ended up being from influencers, which we were so surprised whenever we saw those results. This really shows how in B2B, the definition of media is changing from traditional PR more into that influencer digital realm. And then compared to the previous year, podcast opportunities were increased by 133%. And speaking opportunities engagements were increased by 140%. And this wasn't from reinventing the wheel. This was just dropping them into the existing strategy. Not to mention, post-show, several months out, we had over 70 pieces of coverage, 5 million in reach, and the pipeline of opportunities just kept coming out. Content from that show was placed probably up to 5 months post-show. So what's really important here is the content. Whenever you can get that content engine going at an activation like a trade show, it's gonna really benefit you long-term and really create a strategy moving forward. So the takeaway is simple. You don't need a new fancy campaign to work with influencers. You can just figure out how to strategically implement them into what you're already doing.
So we're gonna end here with talking about some of the common concerns and barriers that we consistently hear when talking about influencer relation problems, and kind of like hit them head on so that we can talk through those. The first one is that influencers are for B2C. And this perception comes from how influencer marketing first started, like Alli was talking about earlier, you know, beauty and lifestyle and dances and things like that. But to be honest, there's been influencers in B2B for quite a while, right? We have publication editors, we have keynote speakers, we have industry analysts, we have the contractors and the engineers and everyone else that Alli was talking about. So really, it's not that they don't exist, it's that the channels have evolved, right? And they've built their own following on YouTube and on LinkedIn and in other niche communities as well. So really tapping into that and what they've developed is the change.
All right, our industry doesn't have influencers like we talked about. Every industry realistically does. Manufacturing, logistics, automation. There are engineers with 20,000 engaged followers on LinkedIn, people with massive YouTube channels, and people on LinkedIn with hundreds of technical comments. They may not call themselves influencers. I've had a few beers here or there with some influencers that say, I am not an influencer. I say, what are you? We usually land on like content creator at that point, or you know, just a speaker. But they are influencers because they're shaping conversations. So if your buyers are listening to someone, that person has influence. Go out and find them. Go down that rabbit hole. What if they get canceled? Well, this feels risky. Reputational risk is real and it should be evaluated. But that's true of any spokesperson, executive, or partner. The solution isn't going to be avoidance. The solution is due diligence. Vet their history, use our framework. Oh yeah, what's up?
And so do you put forth like a contract for them about what they can say and can't, and what happens when the relationship may end?
It depends on the application, right? So earned media, there's a lot, or earned influencer relations, there's a lot more leeway, right? Like we're not so strict with how they are talking about our product because it's a relationship. They're doing us a favor and we're doing them a favor. Now, if it's a paid activation, definitely going to have a contract. Probably going to go extensively over speaking, talking points for the activation, gonna have it reviewed by legal, all that good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, in these B2B industries, there's professionals with decades of experience. So dig in, look at them. They're not volatile internet personalities that are going to go out and get canceled. So trust your gut as you're vetting.
Got the Chris Rock slap on that background?
Yeah. Talk about a cancellation.
We can't measure it. So you can, if you design that measurement from the get-go, you know, aligned with those objectives that you need to set. So you can look at traffic lift. You can look at attribution of content downloads. Obviously, video views. Social listening is a great tool as well to see what kind of conversations are happening about your brand and your competitors. So we've used all those to kind of round out a story there. But attribution isn't, you know, 100% clean. It's not with PR either. It's hard to sometimes tie a business value back to PR, but we still continue to invest in it because we know it has value in the overall marketing mix. So really, you know, influencer relations is happening in B2B. And you can kind of see how some of that can shape out and the results that you can see from that. So really the impetus here is to, think about it as part of your marketing mix. And hopefully some of these frameworks will help you think about how that could happen.
All right, that's our show. Thanks so much for listening. And if anyone has any questions, we're here.
Yeah, back in the long time ago, when chat boards were just starting or blogs, posts and all, I can remember that we were encouraged as a business to monitor those and jump in and defend ourselves or provide information, et cetera. Is that still the right practice, or is there a different approach to deal with that?
So let's use Reddit for an example, right? Where a lot of businesses are being talked about. Typically, we don't encourage our clients to engage, but we definitely encourage them to monitor, right? And to build content, to kind of like refute that. So not from my perspective, no, we don't typically tell them to go in the comments of a blog or something like that and refute that.
Yeah, great.
You see a big difference between an earned and a paid influencer's influence. And I guess where I'm going with this is sometimes you might imagine that maybe there isn't that much of a difference, or maybe the paid is good, almost as good enough as an earned. Or do you see a big gap? Like people can tell if they see in the bottom left-hand corner, it's paid.
Yeah.
It discounts it in half.
Since B2B industries are so built on trust, I am always going to recommend earned media just because there is not that disclaimer in the corner, and then it can be focused more on thought leadership. If I have a client that's really interested in doing direct product marketing per se, then I say, let's look at some paid opportunities. Let's look at influencers we've already partnered with on an earned basis and see how we can support them with our dollars. It's part of that mutually beneficial relationship. So does that kind of answer your question there?
Yeah, so what you kind of said, like you said earlier, awareness versus trying to convince someone to buy your product. But I was just wondering if you'd seen, a paid is 80% as effective as an earned.
Yeah, there's no apples to apples correlation like that. It really will depend on the influencer, the industry, the content. But it is so confusing because it's well, do I do earned or do I do paid? And so that's kind of why I always recommend look at your goals, identify the audience, and identify your budget first, because I'll tell you what, if you're trying to go after paid and you don't have much budget, good luck.
And I think it's a timing thing too, right? It's, paid is more immediate, earned is a longer road. So that's another factor there.
I don't know if you agree. I mean, what we saw in our recent campaign, and I see it more in B2B, that social media is really used for awareness campaigns, not lead gen or conversion.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in a business that our sales cycles are probably 6 months plus. This is just one point of influence and exposure. I mean, I think if you look at social media as an ROI on gen, you'll fall really short. If you look at it for conversions, you're going to fall extremely short. But the awareness is better than any media we could have.
Okay.
For sure. I don't know if you guys agree. We just don't have, and we didn't expect conversions to be high from this.
Sometimes it is interesting if there's somebody on a team and they're very expecting to see those conversions, the actual traffic. That's whenever we'll kind of figure out, okay, let's partner on the gated content to be able to really track it back. But it's such a great tool for awareness. Completely agree.
I mean, there's so many touch points, right? It's hard to attribute any one thing and the actual influence, but yeah, it does definitely live in that awareness engagement play, unless you do more specifically gen tactics around it. Yeah.
So just following up on that, then what are the most common KPIs? Is it exposures, or you don't really have click-through rates, or so what do you use?
Yeah, it's going to be followers. It's going to be impressions on any specific post are really the two main ones. Beyond that, I love reporting on the qualitative aspects. So this person has a really vibrant energy that is going to propel us forward, really make people drawn into this content. So I'll comment on something like that. I'll comment if I see people in their comments that have the job titles that we're trying to reach. Oh, I saw 3 people in the comments of this post directly, interacting with them. So I would recommend we go with them, that type of thing.
I mean, I think we also look at engagement rate, across social platforms, and we're always looking at traffic attribution as well. So seeing if there's any lift from social, sources and mediums, before and after as well. And also with social listening, right? You have share of voice, which obviously a lot of things contribute to that too. You have sentiment, you have a lot of other KPIs within that you can start to track and see if there's any brand lift there as well.
And I'd say this was just one factor. We called it, a fully integrated marketing plan. So this was an awareness that then drove them to another impression point, that then drove them to a potential conversion, that then drove them to, maybe a link to their local distributor that would have it on the shelves. But, we had it all the way through that this was one tool within a fully integrated plan. And this was not used as conversion. So I think if you don't have the other aspects, and I would say making that journey streamlined, we talked about it. If you got something on a click-through product on Facebook, their landing page on your site should be, hey, saw you came from Facebook, here's all your information. So they don't think wait, why am I over here now? I didn't understand. And then it can track that journey and the user follows how they got there.
Well, similar to PR too, you can provide your influencers with UTM tracking, right? That they can leverage, and you can really try to attribute, on a specific landing page, where that traffic is coming from over the course of a span of time as well. So you can get pretty granular with it, depending on your relationship with the influencer.
Yeah, they're not always gonna take your links just because it's built on a relationship. Now paid, they'll take your links.
We still provide them even, hoping they will, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's just wondering in that there's this huge trend in a lot of educational institutions now to really integrate in-practice education. It seems to me that I'm not necessarily thinking just the business school, but a lot of schools, professors have a big following, particularly they've been teaching for 20 years. They've got close-up relationships with a whole bunch of students who typically hang out with them. Have you thought about that as a channel for influence, just building it right into a course and building it into as a natural part of, particularly in the trade schools, it would seem to me there's a real opportunity. What did you learn on? I learned on one of these units, but in other courses as well, where the task for a lot of educators is to keep the content current and use current business, real business examples with real offerings. Now, I don't know, I'm just tossing around if it even plays in this equation, if you think it would be.
We do that. We work with professors in a few areas. I mean, we've got a competitor in the room, so I don't want to say too much, but
I'm monitoring.
Absolutely. So
in your agency, have you experimented with that at all? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to decide can you create the same sort of win-win and.
So with Clifton, with the trade show or with the trade industry, we were absolutely able to effectively do that. We are in multiple pieces of curriculum at this point. Now on the more professor side, we've worked with professors on articles, papers, things like that. I'm not 100% sure if they've incorporated it into their curriculum, but there is that collaboration there. And, moving forward, we're always looking for ways to get the most bang for your buck out of these opportunities. So it's definitely a great idea.
That I'm pointing out is that I'm hearing in many academics is that, well, we have to move to in-practice learn. There has to be some examples that tie us to the employment that these people are leaving. They're paying money for their education. They're leaving with a debt and not a job. How do we make that happen? I mean, it seemed to me that this might be a pathway to explore. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's going to sell product and get your KPIs the way you like, but
Yeah.
it might be an opportunity to experiment.
Absolutely, and if there's a goal is education or, workforce development, there's so many opportunities to do just exactly that, yeah.
I was gonna ask a question of like out of curiosity, but I'm gonna use this as a plug because I was gonna tell Lynn, like on the material, they're gonna share post-conference that was like open doors if you wanna, I'm teaching fall marketing strategy students, if anyone or you guys like want to talk about coming to class, guest speaker, that like, well, I'll put that in the detail, but I was like, feels like I should say that. But the original question was more the curiosity on the relationship management. It's like, do you usually manage that relationship with the influencer, the brand, like your client, or is it kind of like joint effort?
Yeah, both sides. We're managing both sides. So I have an influencer Rolodex across all the industries that we touch at the agency. I have notes on all of them, how I met them, how the interactions have been, just to manage that side. And then, there's a lot of people to keep in touch with, so I often take notes too. This person has a 14-year-old son. This person loves going to South Carolina for vacation in the summer, that type of stuff, just so, keeping it fresh. But I love linking them together, and a great way to do that is like trade shows. Let's set you up with this influencer and have a coffee just to talk. And usually if they haven't worked together at that point, that's when they'll start working together.